He stayed there, lying in the same corner, his gaze lost on the horizon, as if he expected that old gate to open at any moment. The wind blew gently, lifting the dry dust from the beaten ground, and the distant sound of crickets was the only thing that broke the silence of the forgotten farm. Nobody passed by there anymore. Time seemed to have stopped, but in the heart of that ox, there was still something alive, hope. A stubborn, almost innocent hope that kept him firm, believing that his boss would return. It was difficult to understand what was going on behind those sunken, tired eyes. Some said he was just used to the smell, the routine, the presence of someone who treated him softly. Others believed it was more than that there was a pure feeling there, a silent kind of love that only animals are capable of feeling. A love that doesn't charge, that doesn't complain, that just waits. But time, cruel and indifferent, waits for no one. That ox, branded by the man's hands, knew every sound of the iron gate. Every time the wind made it creak, he got up, as if sensing a reunion. The body no longer had the same vigor, but the heart still beat strong, full of a faith that only those who have truly loved would understand. Every sunset, he returned to the same place, as if it were a ritual, as if that simple gesture could bring his boss back. But the boss, he had already moved on with his life. He took with him promises, stories, and the trail of a coexistence that seemed eternal. Back there, the man swore he would return, that animal would be taken care of, that nothing would change. But life has the cruel gift of separating what time once united. Money spoke louder, routine took its toll, and what was once affection became a distant memory. Meanwhile, the ox remained there, with the same meek look, without understanding the reason for his absence. There was pain, yes, but also something even deeper, a mixture of confusion and hope, as if inside him there was the silent voice of someone asking why. Why didn't the boss come back? Why didn't the gate ever open again? The farm, once full of laughter, was now silent. The sound of boots, the whistle calling the ox by name, everything was stuck in the past. And in the middle of that void, only the figure of an animal that never knew what it was like to give up was left. A simple, pure being, but capable of keeping within itself a loyalty that many humans have forgotten. There are stories that hurt, not because of the ending, but because of the wait. And this is one of them, because the ox's wait wasn't just for food or shelter. It was because of something he believed to be eternal, the presence of his boss, the one who once made him feel like he had value. Now the sun hides behind the mountains, the countryside sleeps, and the gate remains closed. But the ox, he's still there, firm, looking at the same point, as if at any moment the past could knock on that gate. Little did he know that the truth was much harsher than he could imagine. A truth made of ingratitude, forgetfulness, and promises that were carried away by the wind. And it is precisely here, in this silence, broken only by the slow beat of a tired heart, that the saddest story the countryside has ever held begins. The countryside has always had its own way of telling stories. The wind that passes through the trees, the smell of the wet earth after the rain, the distant bird song at dawn, everything there holds memories. And on that small farm forgotten by time, there was a story that the wind insisted on whispering, a story about loyalty, about a bond that was born from silence, gaze, and custom. A story that started out simple, but that fate turned into one of the saddest the backlands have ever seen. It was a modest farm, surrounded by pastures and low hills. The boss, a man of few words, woke up early, put on his straw hat, and headed to the corral. And there he was, a small, curious calf with light fur and eyes that seemed to understand more than they should. From day one, that animal stood out. He didn't run away. He didn't hide. He observed his boss with a calm that attracted attention. and the man, used to dealing with wild and skittish oxen, realized that this one was different. Over time, the calf grew, and along with it, the bond that united it to its master grew. When the man walked through the field, the ox followed. When he stopped, the animal waited. There was no rope, no fence to hold them back. It was a call made of routine and trust. Some in the village said that that ox was too tame. Others said that it was intelligent like people. And in a way, they were all right. Because what existed there was not just obedience, it was affection. The boss spoke to him like someone talking to a friend. He called people by name, told them the news, complained about the weather and the hard life in the countryside. The ox, quiet, just listened, wagging its tail, as if it understood every word. There were days when the man sat in the shade of the mango tree and the animal lay nearby, both watching the horizon. No sound, no rush, just the company of those who, without realizing it, were already part of each other. But time, that silent judge, never leaves things as they are. The farm began to experience difficulties. The drought arrived, the livestock was decreasing, the bills were increasing. The boss started selling what he could to keep the rest. The field, once full of life, became empty. The gates that opened every morning began to close earlier, and little by little, that man who seemed unshakable began to bow before the weight of his own reality. Still, the ox remained there, faithful. When the boss left, he waited at the gate. When he returned, the animal came running, hitting the ground hard, happy as someone who finds what they love most. Their relationship was a portrait of something pure, almost forgotten nowadays. Loyalty without conditions. And the most beautiful thing, and at the same time the saddest thing, is that the ox never asked for anything in return. Neither food nor comfort. Just presence. On the hottest afternoons, when the sun was beating down, it was common to see the boss putting his hand on the ox's neck, speaking softly. "You're a friend, see? A good one. You're different." And the ox remained silent, still, breathing deeply, with that look that only those who have a soul feel. Because yes, animals also have souls. Soul of those who feel the absence, of those who recognize the touch, of those who understand abandonment without needing words. Over the years, that ox became part of the farm's history. No one saw him as cattle anymore. He didn't go to the common pasture, he wasn't taken to the fair. He had his song, his schedule, his routine, and the boss, even tired, found in him a peace that the outside world no longer offered. It was as if that animal reminded the man of who he was, where he came from, and what really mattered. But life in the countryside is made of changes, and none of them ask for permission. The boss started to get sick, age took its toll, and responsibilities increased. There were debts, difficult decisions, unfulfilled promises. And what was once a farm full of life became just a piece of land surrounded by memories. Even so, the ox remained firm, as if he believed that everything would get better, because he didn't understand money or time. I only understood presence, and it was this presence that over time began to hurt. When the boss stopped showing up every day, the ox waited. When the footsteps became rarer, he still waited. When the voice no longer echoed in the field, he remained there. Every dawn, he looked at the same gate, the same dirt path, waiting to see the figure of the man he loved so much emerge. There are those who say that animals don't feel homesick, but whoever says that has never looked into the eyes of one who was left behind. Because the ox's gaze changed. It was no longer the curious look of the calf that met its boss, nor the serene look of someone who trusts. It was the look of someone waiting for something that may never come again. And still, he didn't give up. The farm seemed to die with time, the broken fences, the empty corral, the weeds taking over the yard. Silence has become the loudest sound constant. And in the midst of all this, the ox remained as a guardian of what no longer existed. Every step I took brought back memories. Every breath brought the smell of the past. He was, in a way, the last vestige of a forgotten love. It's impossible to tell this story without feeling a lump in your throat, because it's not just about an ox and his boss. It's about human ingratitude, about loyalty that time doesn't erase, and about the weight of being left behind by those we love most. How many times in life have we also waited for someone who never came back? How many times did we believe that the gate would open again? Maybe that's why this story touches so deeply, because deep down, we've all been that ox, waiting for someone, for a promise, for a gesture in return. And when we look at him, standing before the gate, we don't just see an animal. We see ourselves, in silence, trying to understand the reason for so much absence. If you've ever waited for someone who never came back, comment below. I understand this pain. I want to know how much this story touches you, because what comes next will make your heart sink even more. The bond between the ox and the boss was something that no one could fully explain. Those who saw it from the outside thought it was just custom, having lived together for years. But those who observed closely realized that there was something deeper, something that went beyond instinct. It was a silent bond, built day after day, between simple gestures and looks that said everything without needing words. Since dawn, the sound of the gate opening was the signal for the ox to get up. He knew the boss was coming. The sound of boots on the dirt floor, the clinking of the aluminum bucket, the firm but calm voice calling the name that only he understood. It was a daily ritual. And when the boss appeared, the ox approached slowly, with a sparkle in his eyes that mixed respect and affection. The man, with calloused hands and a face marked by the sun, smiled sideways. He placed his hand on the animal's neck, looked into its eyes, and for a brief moment seemed to forget all his problems. There, in that silent exchange, was something that neither time nor poverty could erase. The boss said that ox understood him better than many people, and it was true. There were days when the boss left feeling dejected, tired of the bills, the drought, the difficulties, and the ox seemed to understand. It didn't move forward, it didn't make any noise. He just approached and placed his head on the man's arm as if to say, "I'm here." It was a simple gesture, but full of something that few humans still know how to demonstrate: loyalty. On that piece of ground, the two learned to understand each other without speaking. The boss said that when the ox was a calf, he spent sleepless nights caring for it, feeding it milk in an improvised bottle, protecting it from the cold. Maybe that's why the animal followed him wherever he went, not out of habit, but out of gratitude. And it's curious how animals, when they love, don't forget. They keep the sound of the voice, the smell, the touch in their hearts. The people of the village were astonished. "This ox is different," they said. "You seem to understand what the man is saying." And I really understood. When the boss called, he would come running. When told to stop, he obeyed. There was a mutual respect, an almost human harmony. It was as if the two were reflections of each other. The man hardened by life and the animal with a gentle soul, teaching about patience and love without demands. Sometimes, on long afternoons, the master would sit on the edge of the corral, looking at the reddish horizon of the sunset. The ox stood nearby, chewing slowly, and the peaceful sound of that moment seemed to lift away the weight of the world. It was in these moments that the boss spoke to himself, unburdened himself, told his fears, his regrets. He talked about the woman who left, about the son who got lost in the big city, about the debts that were growing. And the ox, quiet, just listened. He never interrupted, never judged, never turned away. It just stayed there, present. Time passed, and the bond only grew. The boss, a brutish and suspicious man, began to soften. He told his neighbors that ox belonged to his home more than many people. "This one understands me," he said, laughing. And it was true. There were days when the master didn't exchange a word with anyone, but talked to the ox as if he were talking to an old friend. "Today it was tough, mate," he said, "but we will hold on." And the ox, with that calm look, seemed to respond, "I'm with you." Over the years, the animal became a kind of guardian of the farm. He accompanied his boss in everything, in the corral, on the farm, even on rainy days. When the man mounted the horse and went to see the cattle, the ox followed, trotting slowly, always a few steps behind. Anyone who saw it from afar swore it was a scene from a movie, and in a way, it was a living portrait of love and fidelity. But what no one knew was that that bond was also born from loneliness. The boss had lost almost everything, the family had moved away, the friends had disappeared, and the ox was the only one that stayed, a silent being who asked for nothing but gave everything. And without realizing it, the man began to place a piece of his own heart in that animal. The morning seemed lighter when he heard his companion mooing. It was like a reminder that there was still something pure, something sincere. And maybe that's why the boss talked to him so much, because he knew there was no lie there. The countryside can be a lonely place, and those who live there learn to value every presence. And the ox, without understanding words, understood everything. There were also moments of fun. Sometimes the boss would take a handful of grass and pretend to hide it. The ox, curious, poked it with its nose, and the man laughed, a rare laugh, the kind that time almost erases. It was in these small gestures that life still showed beauty. A man, an ox, a piece of ground, and a bond that defied even oblivion. But time, always it, began to take its toll. The boss grew old, his steps became slow, his hands shook. The ox also changed. The fur lost its shine, the body no longer had the same strength. Still, an Esper loved the other. When the man took too long to leave the house, the ox lowed low, calling. And when the boss heard it, he smiled tiredly. "I'm coming, boy, calm down." It was a bond so strong that it seemed as if destiny had made them for each other. Every look, every gesture was a living reminder of what it means to love without asking for anything in return. And that is precisely what makes this story so painful, because the purer the love, the deeper the wound when silence arrives. Today, anyone who passes by that farm may not understand what really happened, but anyone who knew them both knows that that bond was not common. It was a friendship made of silence, routine, and presence, the kind of bond that time tries to erase, but the heart insists on keeping. And before history changes course, before destiny shows its harshest face, we must remember it was not the ox that needed the boss. It was the boss who, without realizing it, needed that ox. Because in the end, he was the one who kept him standing. If this part of the story reminded you of someone who was your silent support, someone who stayed even when everyone left, comment below, "I also had someone like that." I want to see how far this bond touches you, because what comes next will hurt even more. That morning started differently. The sun took longer to appear, and even when it rose, it seemed weaker, as if the sky itself knew that something was about to change. The boss got up earlier than usual, silent, with a distant look in his eyes. The ox from the corral noticed. He always noticed. From the first step, the man's manner already revealed that this day would not be like the others. The boss walked slowly to the gate. He ran his hand over the cold iron, took a deep breath, and looked around, as if recording every detail in his memory. The rustle of the leaves, the smell of the grass, the crowing of the rooster in the yard, everything seemed clearer, more alive, as if it were the last time I would see it. The ox approached, curious, wagging its tail, expecting the same affection as always. But the man, this time, did not smile. He stroked the animal's neck for a long time, in silence. Anyone watching from afar would think it was a common scene. the owner saying goodbye to the animal before leaving for the city. But it wasn't just that. There was something different about that touch. It was longer, heavier. It was the kind of gesture that carries guilt. The boss knew that this farewell had another meaning, but the ox, innocent, had no idea. The previous weeks had been tough. Debts tightened, the price of cattle fell, and the man found himself trapped. He tried to resist. He tried to find a way, but he couldn't. And it was there that the decision, bitter and inevitable, was born. The farm would be sold. The field that carried memories, sweat, and history would pass into other hands. And the ox didn't know what fate was about to take from him. That morning, the truck parked near the corral. The sound of the engine broke the silence of the field. The ox was scared at first, but soon stood still, watching. The boss didn't look at him. He messed around with junk, spoke little, avoided contact. It was as if guilt prevented him from meeting that animal's gaze. The men who came to help spoke loudly, clapped their hands, made noise. The ox, confused, tried to understand what was happening. The boss, with his head down, just watched, without the courage to do what he needed. One of the helpers asked, "Is that what's going on?" The boss took a while to respond. He swallowed hard, passed his hand over his hat, and said, almost in a whisper, "That's the one." The ox took a step back. I didn't understand the words, but I felt the atmosphere. Fear is a universal language. When the boss approached, he didn't back down. On the contrary, he put his nose against the man's arm, as if asking for an explanation. That simple gesture, so pure, was the hardest blow to the heart of whoever created it. The boss took a deep breath, and with a choked voice he murmured, "It'll be better this way, mate. It's just for a while. I'll come back to get you." But even he didn't believe his own lie. The truck was loaded. The sound of chains, the creaking of wood, the sound of boots on dry ground. It all felt like a forced goodbye. The ox, without resisting, climbed up. Not because he understood what was happening, but because he trusted whoever was in charge. That's the cruelest part of loyalty. It doesn't question. He just obeyed, looking back one last time, searching for his boss's face among the figures. When the truck pulled away, the man stood still, watching the dust rise and disappear over the horizon. The teary eyes, the heavy chest, the soul in pieces. He tried to believe he was doing the right thing, but deep down, he knew he was giving away something that would never come back. The following days were long and silent. The corral seemed too empty. The wind hitting the boards made a sad sound, almost a lament. The boss tried to distract himself, but nothing filled the void. The routine without the ox seemed to lose meaning. That silence haunted him even in his dreams. He found himself calling the animal's name without realizing it, hoping to hear the mooing back, but only the echo responded. On the other side, the ox was taken to a distant farm. The smell was different. The sound was strange. Everything he knew was left behind. He looked for the gate, the sound of boots, the voice that called him affectionately. But he found nothing. Every sunset, he approached the fence and stared at the horizon, waiting. It was as if he believed the boss would come at any moment. The other oxen fed, lay down, followed the rhythm of life. But he doesn't. He waited. It didn't moo loudly, it didn't move. He just stood there in silence, looking at the same point on the horizon. Sometimes pedestrians were surprised. "This animal is different," they said. "He's always quiet, as if he's thinking." And maybe he really did. He thought about the smell of the old farm, the voice of the man who called him, the promise that still echoed inside him. The boss, in turn, tried to move on with his life, but his regret grew every day. At night, when the wind blew through the windows, he swore he heard the distant mooing. It was memory taking its toll. It was conscience reminding us that loyalty cannot be sold. Time passed, but the bond, the thing between them, was still alive, one stuck in memory, the other in hope. And while the man tried to forget, the ox refused to accept that gate would no longer open. If you've ever experienced a goodbye that seemed temporary but became eternal, comment below, "I know what it's like to wait." Because what comes next will show that sometimes time doesn't bring you back. It only teaches you to hurt in silence. The dust of time already covered everything. The gate that once creaked with the touch of the wind now remained closed, rusty, forgotten. The farm was no longer the same. New hands, new voices, new steps. But the ox, he was still there. In the same corner, with the same look, as if the heart refused to accept what life had already decided. The boss never came back. The promise said in a trembling voice on that dusty day of departure was caught in the wind, lost among the memories of the field that was once home. Days turned into months, months turned into years. Hope, which was once alive, began to mix with longing. And the longing in turn turned into silent pain. The ox no longer ran when he heard footsteps, but raised his head. He still waited. Maybe he expected the impossible. Maybe he just hoped to hear the sound of that voice calling his name one last time. Time passed, and nature began to erase the marks, except one, the place where he always stayed, with his eyes fixed on the gate. The new owners didn't understand. They said that this animal seemed trapped in a past that no longer existed. "It's just an ox," they murmured. But anyone who really looked knew there was more there. There was feeling, there was memory. He didn't need to understand what abandonment was. He felt. Every sunset was a new wound. Every morning without the boss was a cruel reminder that not every wait has an end. The boss, in turn, never had the courage to return. The city swallowed him, work trapped him, and regret followed him in silence. Sometimes I dreamed about the ox, the same calm look, the same gait in the background, and I woke up with my chest tight. I tried to forget, but how can you forget someone who never gave up waiting for you? And so time continued, taking everything except that animal's loyalty. Because there are pains that don't scream, they just stay. There are loves that never end, they just wait until the end. If this part of the story touched you, comment below. He's still waiting. I want to know if your heart also felt this silence that only longing is capable of leaving. The field was silent. The gate was still closed, and the wind that blew no longer carried the smell of the boss's presence. All that was left was the soft sound of dry leaves, the distant song of a lonely bird, and the sound of time passing slowly, as if it was sorry to leave. The ox was still there, firm, aged, with a tired body, but the look, oh, the look was still the same. A look full of longing, full of hope, and that's where the saddest part of this story lies, the waiting of those who never gave up, even when everything was already over. They say animals forget easily, who have no memory, who live on instinct. But whoever says that has never seen an ox look at the horizon for years, expecting the impossible. Yes, he remembered. He remembered the voice that called him, the touch on cold mornings, the sound of boots in the yard. I remembered the promise that was suspended in the air. "I'll come back for you." A simple phrase, but one that became the reason for its existence. Because when you love with purity, any word becomes eternity. Time has aged the animal's body, but not its feeling. Even when the rain fell heavily, he stayed there under the tree, facing the gate, looking as if the past could still return. Some said it was just habit, but those who had a soul knew that was love. A love that doesn't need to be spoken to be understood. A love that goes through silence and survives absence. Meanwhile, the boss, already aged too, lived far away, trapped in regrets that time could not heal. Sometimes at night, he would close his eyes and listen to the sound of the field, the mooing that came from his memory, the look of the animal he left behind. His heart sank, and he wondered what would have happened if he had returned. But time, cruel and wise, does not give back what it takes. He just teaches. And sometimes he teaches too late. Life has these ironies. Sometimes the loyalty we look for in others is in the eyes of those who never had the voice to promise anything, but fulfilled everything anyway. The ox never asked for anything. He asked for no food, no shelter, no return, just waited. And in that silent wait, he showed more love than many humans can feel. The truth is that the world is forgetting the value of presence, forgetting that love is not about promises, it is about constancy. And that ox alone, forgotten at the edge of the fence, became a symbol of that. He reminds us that there are loves that resist even abandonment, that there are hearts that even though they are hurt, still believe, that there are souls who wait, even when they know that no one will come back. Sometimes life forces us to leave, but those who leave are not always the ones who suffer the most. Sometimes those who stay are the ones who carry the heaviest weight, that of continuing to wait. And the ox stayed. He stayed because he believed, because he loved, because he didn't know how to give up. And maybe deep down, he never understood what abandonment was, because those who truly love can't imagine being left behind. This story is more than about an ox and his boss. It's about how much like him we are. We've all waited for someone who never came back. We already believe in promises that took time. We have already looked at the gate of life, waiting to hear a name, a voice, a return that never came. And that's why, when we look at him standing in the same place, we feel our chest tighten. Because deep down, it is a reflection of what exists within each of us, the desire to believe, even when everything says to give up. If you've ever waited for someone, even though you knew they might not come back, comment below, "I'm still waiting." And if this story touched your heart, leave a in the comments. Because after all, some loves don't need words, and true love never forgets.